So here's the thing. I've been noticing recently a lot of people in Expat Facebook groups sharing their situation and how they are struggling in low-income jobs or struggling to find a job after they moved here to Denmark. I think they are making a fundamental mistake, and I decided to make this video so that you can avoid that same mistake. So here comes my tips on how not to relocate to a high-income, high-cost country. The low-income workers in Denmark make comparably more money than low-income workers in other countries. Also, the wage distribution in Denmark is more compressed, so the ratio between, let's say, the CEO of the company and the lowest earner of the company is less than in other countries, like in Hungary, let's say, where I'm from. But with that said, the lowest income earners in any country are struggling. They could be struggling to varying degrees, but they are struggling because it's not only it is a high income, but also a high cost country. So if you are currently in a low cost, low income country and you're kind of middle class, and you might be thinking to yourself, you know what, let's screw this. I'm moving to a high income country because people make so much money. You could easily put yourself in a situation that your purchasing power could reduce. Even though you're making more money, comparatively to other people, you're making less. Your level of comfort and your experience in life could be worse, even if you're making more money. So here's what you shouldn't do. What you shouldn't do is coming without a plan, moving here to see how it turns out, coming here and trying to find a job while you're burning money. The reason you shouldn't do it is because you will be burning money so fast, you could easily consume as much money in a month as you would save in a year in a low-cost country. Because what you have to pay for rent, you have to pay for groceries, and those, well, that's just expensive. Life is expensive. That's a huge risk. That's more risk than I would take, and that's more risk than I would recommend anyone to take. Don't relocate without a plan. Also, it's going to be quite difficult for you because without a job, you cannot get a CPR number, and so on and so forth. The other reason you shouldn't do that is because in the country where you are from, you probably have a profession, you have skills, you have education, you know the language, you have connections. And you're coming to a high-cost, high-income country, and you would lose those advantages. You don't know the people, you don't know the language. Your education might be not compatible with the system that they have here. A lot of people have masters and bachelors in Denmark because the government essentially pays for their education. Not only it pays for the education, but it pays part of your living expenses while you are working on that education. So a lot of people have masters, even just to get internships. A lot of times companies request that you are doing your masters, not only your bachelor's. So that could be a disadvantage if in the country where you're from, you're absolutely fine with a bachelor. I was absolutely fine with a bachelor. If I hadn't had the experience, having only a bachelor's degree would put me in a disadvantage compared to the recent graduates here who a lot of them have their masters. What you should do is the following. First of all, thinking the long term. Don't just burn bridges and leave your country tomorrow. Make it a 2 or 3 year plan. Usually people overestimate what they can do in a year, but underestimate what they can do in a 3 or 5 year horizon. So make the longer term plan. Use that time to save up. That's one thing. And the second thing is to gather the experience and the skills that will be valuable here. In order to get hired in Denmark, you need to have something that is in demand in Denmark. And this could be a number of things. It could be a blue-collar profession that is in demand, like plumbers and other skilled workers are in demand, but you will probably have to speak a little bit of Danish to do that. There's actually a list published by, I believe, the Danish government about skills and professions in need. But so that's the blue collar way. That's not what I did. What I recommend is to have a profession that is international by nature, meaning to have the skills that are relevant and are applicable in a Danish company as well as in whatever other company, because the work you are doing is international. Let's say you are in controlling, or let's say you are an engineer, let's say you're in IT. These professions, what you do, it doesn't matter where you do. It's not country specific. Well, some of it is, but for the most part, it's not country specific. My example as well, I'm a purchasing category manager. I deal with suppliers that are supplying parts to the company that I'm working for. And those companies are international companies. So my portfolio, my business contacts have always been companies in other countries. So the skills that I have developed and the experience that I gathered is just as relevant here as it was back in Hungary. If the profession that you have is like this, then you are a valuable candidate and you are in demand here in Denmark. And that leads me to my next point, is to move with a job offer. Apply for jobs remotely. That's absolutely fine. Companies take interviews remotely and they hire people remotely. Of course, there's some risk involved in that from their side, so they are rather cautious with hiring someone from abroad. But there's a lot of need for people with skills in Denmark because there's so many great companies that have their headquarters here. If you think about it, there's Lego, there's Arla, there's Grundfos, Danfoss, Vestas, Siemens, Gamesa, and a lot of others. There's simply not enough qualified people in the country to feed the need of all of these companies and to run these companies to the best extent that they could run. So companies in Denmark have a demand for people and people with skills and experience, but then you need to have those skills that they are looking for. It's going to take longer to get hired internationally than it would take locally. I know that from experience, but it happens eventually. And if you have the job offer, then the whole relocation is much more streamlined. A lot of companies offer relocation assistance, so they would hire a consulting firm that will help you with getting your CTR registered, with everything else that you need to do when relocating. So that's very helpful. If you're a couple and only one of you gets a job offer at first, which is likely, right? It's rather unlikely that the two of you will get hired in the same time in the same city. So if just one of you gets a job and you're moving with the two of you, then I would really recommend that you take a look at your budget and how much you will possibly earn. Plan your cash flow, design your budget. So that has been my tips based on my experience and also the experience of the people that I've talked to. I hope you found this video interesting and useful. If you did, please consider giving this a like. I thank you for joining and I will see you in the next video.